Welcome to the SkullKing Football Podcast, presented by Fox DFS Firelines. Now, here are your hosts, Justin and Ryan Skullrood.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Ryan Skullrood, and with me tonight, finally, a dual-person episode. My brother is on. Justin, say hello.
Hello, Harry. You're alive. Finally together on a joint podcast.
And you're a horrible shot.
Well, hopefully not a fantasy football. Hopefully there's some sort of accuracy here, as there would be a lot of work put in. If I'm a horrible shot, that's disgraceful. Way too much work put in on this. But happy to be back. Happy to finally get going on this. And, another season upon us. First game. By the time you're listening to this, first game will be tonight. Excited that it is finally here. The last couple of days have really been probably the hardest of the off season, because you're done with your draft and you're like, you want to do something. I think as a commissioner of another league, of a work league, I think I've had to rule on 6 trades, and I've seen probably 12 waiver wire things. But part of that also has to do with the fact that 2 people auto-drafted the last 4 picks, and we gave them people like Des Bryant and and people like that, because you weren't here. Apparently the draft wasn't important enough for you to be here, so we gave you the quote-unquote best available player. So,
oh, my word. I think what's been toughest for me is the fact that, in one of my leagues, we live drafted, and the commissioner didn't even get the rosters up until today. So because of that, there is no free agency. It is all waiver wires until Saturday. So there's no free for all for everyone to go pick up whoever, and first come, first serve. No, it's all on waivers right now. So it's a waiting game to see who claimed who.
Yeah, funny story. We talked about this off air. We'll get to it later when we get into some news and notes. But there's nothing more fun than trolling fantasy players, especially family. There's a nice little hint for what's going to happen later when we talk about some news and alerts that have happened today. But I'll let you take it, Ryan.
All right. So first thing we want to do is we want to do this one last shout out for this. SkullKing is doing a sort of a pick'em type league. It's actually, I guess you could actually describe it sort of as a betting league. There's no money involved, but you're basically given like 500 credits to kind of bet on games each Sunday, and if you run out, you lose. If you run out, before the end of the season, you lose. We're running a league. We were in a contest to try to fill up our league of 100 first. We didn't win. There was a league that did it in 2.5 days, but we are still taking entries for our league. We are going to close that down at game time of the first game. Tonight, Thursday Night Football. So I'm going to have Sunday Swim close it up at that point. Please get on there, sign up, go to sundayswim.com, go to join the public leagues, and go to the SkullKing F-Ball Podcast League. You can sign up there. Everyone who signs up for this league is getting their name in a hat to win either a Tevin Coleman signed jersey or a TY Hilton signed photo. We are giving these away for free. You don't have to win the league at the end of the year to get a chance to win these.
So you're saying there's a chance. So 2 Dumb and Dumber references in this show. I think this is going to be a great show. But so you're saying it's free to join.
Free to join.
There's no money involved, and you could win signed, authenticated memorabilia from professional athletes.
That is correct.
Okay, I'm in.
So am I.
Oh, all right.
All right,
we're in.
So there's that. Why don't we go ahead and get started with our news and notes? And since Justin and I are on, we've been using Sleeper a lot for our news and notes. We've actually we're moving over to the Fantasy Pros Newswire, partially because we have both joined the expert platform with Fantasy Pros. We're not in the expert rankings consensus yet. We haven't proven ourselves yet enough to be part of that, but we will be using those types of rankings and stuff, and we will be using the ranking tool on our website. So
yes, you will be able to see our rankings both of our different rankings every week on the website. Check those out, SkullKingFootball.com, and then the rankings tab, and you'll see both of our rankings all season long.
All right, so here's where Justin trolled me. Boston Scott was waived by the Saints. Saints beat writer Nick Underhill is reporting that the team has waived running back Boston Scott. While reports were looming that Scott would make the team and garner a special teams role, the Saints moved on from the rookie rusher, who had an impressive summer. If he clears waivers, expect Scott to be added to the Saints practice squad. And why did he get waived?
Because Mike Gillislee was added the day before. Mike Gillislee is a proven running back. The news that I saw come in from Sleeper earlier today, and I picked up Mike Gillislee in our 14-team listener league draft, which drafted this last weekend. And right after, so this is when we talk about things outside of fantasy, like stats and playing, this is the game within the game. This is the game where you kind of mess with your friends, you get to troll. So here's a perfect example of a troll. I added Mike Gillislee to my team, and then proceeded to give everybody the news that Boston Scott got cut by the Saints, and said, "Hey, everybody, your stock in Boston Scott needs to be moved to Mike Gillislee." And who do you have on your roster, Ryan? Still,
I drafted Boston Scott, but that's okay. It was enough that I ticked you off enough by drafting him, knowing that you wanted him. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with you getting Mike Gillislee. So,
well, I like him. Because the Saints run two running backs. They've been doing it for years. We both thought that Kamara would take over the role, and he surprised a lot of people last year, coming out of nowhere from a lot of people's expectations. But Ingram was still there, and Gillislee being added in, and Ingram going to be missing 4 weeks. There's a lot of time for Gillislee to prove his worth. And if Ingram starts to have fumbling issues like he's had in previous seasons, which he didn't have last year, that's the recipe for the Saints moving on from Ingram.
Yep. All right, moving on. Le'Veon Bell could miss, quote, several weeks. The Saints Depot is reporting that running back Le'Veon Bell could miss several weeks of football activities due to his holdout. On a morning spot on Sirius XM Radio, Bell's agent, Adisa Bakari, is hinting that the elite running back could sit out for the unforeseen future. While being asked if Bell would sit out for the entire year or just until week 10, Bakari replied, "We'll know when we find out." That's really encouraging. In Bell's absence, be ready to employ James Conner in all fantasy formats. Conner is expected to draw a similar workload to Bell, though the results are yet to be learned. I personally like James Conner. I'm trying to get him. I've put in a waiver claim for him in one league. I had a little bit of a discussion on Twitter with a James Conner believer. I still think that Le'Veon Bell is the elite back, and when Le'Veon Bell comes back, he will be the guy.
Yeah. That's debated. Who do you talk to?
But I think James Conner will be extremely serviceable, and very well could be in the time that Le'Veon Bell's gone, could be a top 15 back. Yeah,
the thing here in the quotes of several weeks, I've heard, based off my knowledge of the rules of football outside of fantasy, is Le'Veon Bell can wait until I think week 10 to sign his contract. Yep. He misses out on a ton of money, but if he plays if he is signed for the last 6 weeks, he does not lose his free agent ability the following season.
Correct. Same thing is going on with Earl Thomas in Seattle.
Yeah. But Earl Thomas showed up to practice today.
Today, yes.
Yesterday, by the time you've heard this. But the thing with Le'Veon Bell is the Steelers can't offer him a better deal. That time has come and gone. Le'Veon Bell either needs to get traded or sign his tender. So those are the two options. And I've been a huge advocate of trying to trade for Bell until this report came out, because this is 10 weeks. This is maybe one thing that I will say is, if you have a stacked and solid team and you believe in your ability to grab off waiver wires, and you can catch the Le'Veon Bell person panicking and on tilt after week 2,
Or 4 or 5.
Or 4 or 5, especially if he's starting to struggle he or she starting to struggle in the season. You can trade for and playoff push the crap out of Le'Veon Bell, because when he comes back, he will be playing. The Steelers will run him into the ground, especially with all the animosity on Twitter, and his linemen are now getting upset, except for the center who had his back and thought he was going to be at practice today. But Le'Veon Bell is a situation that you could trade for, but I would not give up much and only go if the guy's on tilt.
And honestly, the longer it goes, the less you'll have to give up in order to get him.
Exactly.
So, all right, moving on. Ronald Jones II is listed as running back 3 on the depth chart. The Buccaneers are listing running back Ronald Jones as a 3rd running back. Jones' quote-unquote demotion, if you will, was not foreseen while coming out of the draft as a highly touted rusher. His transition to the NFL has been a rough one. He's been horrific this offseason in training camp and in preseason action. I want to say that he has run 26 times for 22 yards. Or maybe it was 22 times for 26 yards. Whatever it was, it's still not good.
That's some Giants and Lions running numbers right there.
Listed behind starter Peyton Barber and veteran pass catcher Jacquizz Rodgers. We had been telling you to pick up Barber. Jones could be waiting for a shot for a while he may be a rosterable fantasy football asset in deeper formats. I wouldn't plan on using him anytime soon. If you drafted Rojo, find someone else.
Yeah, if you drafted Rojo, you haven't been listening to us, number one, because once again, going back to trolls, his coach trolled him. His running back coach trolled him and said, there's probably a reason why they didn't throw the ball at USC, but we're working on it. That's literally what his running back coach said 2 weeks or a week or two ago.
Oh, my word.
And it shocks me that Jacquizz Rodgers is there. I don't think Jacquizz is viable unless you had Rojo and you just want to switch the two. But, yeah, Rojo is not something – on our 14-team league, on our listener league, if Rojo was dropped, it's not someone that I'm going to even think about picking up as a handcuff in any shape at all.
No, I would rather pick up Jacquizz Rodgers because Rodgers has been productive in spot starts in the last few years.
Yes.
All right. Moving on, Marlon Mack is trending in the wrong direction with his hamstring. Mack, who's been dealing with the hamstring issue since August 9th, is trending in the wrong direction as Sunday's season opener against the Bengals approaches. Per Kevin Bowen of 1070, The Fan in Indianapolis. It's not looking good for Mack to be ready for week 1. If Mack can't suit up this weekend, Jordan Wilkins, Christine Michael, oh my word, he's still around. And Nyheim Hines would handle the team's week 1 backfield duties. From what I've seen, Jordan Wilkins is the most likely to get a lot of time.
He will start
running the ball. He will start. We'll see what he can do. He hasn't had the best preseason. Can you imagine if this was finally Christine Michael's shot and he actually took it after being passed around like a moldy roll?
We'd have to call him like the resurrected one or something, because he has been on more teams in the last 2 or 3 seasons, than anyone I can remember in recent history. He is just good enough to be awful enough to be cut. Maybe we'll just call him the just awful enough. But to me, Nyheim Hines is not going to be getting a lot of touches. He can't hold on to the ball.
He has Matt Jones fumbling issues. It is so bad.
And fumbling is not accepted in the NFL. Which is why, like, a perfect example, we talked about it a couple of seconds ago, like Mark Ingram was in the hot seat because of fumbling issues. There was a game, I think 2 seasons ago, where he had a fumble on his first drive against Seattle, and they benched his rear end, and the fantasy world went nuts because they had Mark Ingram, who was predicted to get like 16, 17 points in PPR, and ended with like -2. So
it was ugly.
So I would go Jordan Wilkins and then Christine Michael. I'm not looking to grab Christine Michael or have Nyheim Hines because of fumbling issues.
Yeah. Wilkins is the only one that you would want if you're in like a big, I mean, not even a 14-team league. We're talking like 16 to 20-team leagues.
Well, I have him in a 14-team league.
As a possible flex.
Yeah, and he was one of my last picks.
All right. Austin Safarian Jenkins dealing with the core muscle injury. Isn't expected to practice Wednesday. Injury is a bit of a surprise, and there's been no word of it until Wednesday. This makes Jenkins a question mark going into week 1. Safarian Jenkins owners may want to have a backup plan if the tight end doesn't play. That backup plan needs to be Ben Watson. And I'll get into that later.
Okay. Yeah. Not. What are your thoughts on Mike Gesicki?
Haven't seen enough of his tape yet, to be completely honest.
Okay.
He's a rookie. He's a rookie tight end. So usually that's enough for me, unless it's someone like an Evan Ingram who, hey, all their wide receivers are injured. He is the only receiver that can actually, be a target right now. Unless it's that, I tend to shy away from rookie tight ends.
Yeah.
Antonio Brown. Well, okay, this is minor. Antonio Brown was officially removed from the injury report, so he'll be good to go. Vance McDonald got in a limited practice on Wednesday. He was able to practice on a limited basis with his foot. The veteran tight end has missed several weeks of the preseason with a foot injury. I'll be honest, I don't like the whole situation with tight ends in Pittsburgh. I think it's a situation to avoid. Even when they had Miller, he was not targeted enough to be fantasy viable regularly.
Yeah, that's a Bell Brown offense.
Will Fuller listed as a limited participant on Wednesday. If he doesn't play, oh man, that's so good for DeAndre Hopkins owners.
Yeah, and this is something that I had been very cautious of, in having the conversations that I had before the preseason came out and all those kinds of things. Will Fuller does not stay healthy ever.
No.
His touchdown to catch ratio last year was like 25% over the 4 or 5 game stretch that he was healthy and upright. But already hamstring issues before the season starts. There's a reason why he fell as far as he did. And if you drafted him where you think his numbers could be, I think you will be upset with yourself, or you'll be found wanting, because I just don't think he can stay healthy long enough.
Correct. All right. Delaney Walker was taken off the injury report today. Rex Burkhead was taken off the injury report today. Adrian Peterson officially will start week 1. As far as the running back situation in Washington goes, I think really it's Peterson and Chris Thompson. Thompson is obviously the PPR guy. Adrian Peterson is the standard guy. Thompson will have enough use to still be somewhat relevant in standard, but as far as it goes for now, Adrian Peterson will be the guy for standard.
Yeah. In standard, in PPR, I don't want any part of Peterson. He can't catch the ball, and I don't know if he'll stay healthy all year. Like, he gets a couple of good, easy games at the beginning, Cardinals and Colts, but then he gets Packers, Saints, Panthers, so I'm leery of that.
George Kittle is ready to go for week 1. He's expected to play without any issues. Kittle could have a breakout season with that was loud. Kittle could have a breakout season with a full year alongside Jimmy Garoppolo. The team may be forced to throw often with a suspect defense and depleted core running backs. Without many red zone pass catching threats on the outside, the second-year tight end could pay off his draft cost easily.
Yeah, because he's going at like tight end 18.
Yeah, it's because he's so low. He's definitely a streamable option for me.
Not this week. He's going up against Minnesota. I don't want any part of the San Francisco 49ers offense right now.
Based on matchup throughout the year, he is a streamable option.
Yes, but not week 1.
Chad Williams will start week 1 as the wide receiver 2 for the Arizona Cardinals. However, that means he's still not fantasy relevant because he's not Larry Fitzgerald or David Johnson.
Yeah. The only 2 players on that are even rosterable.
Yeah. Alshon Jeffrey ruled out for week 1. We saw that coming.
That's noise. He's going to be out for week 2 as well, and week 3.
Doug
week 4 and 5.
Doug Baldwin is practicing in full. Looks like he's going to be good to go. He is, we know that, he even said that he's only going to be 80-85% on that knee all year, but I still like him to finish near that wide receiver 1 spot. Rashad Penny is practicing in full. He'll be ready to go for week 1. There have been some concerns with Penny because it's been reported that he's gained 16 pounds since the combine.
Eddie Lacy 2.0.
Let's hope not. And so we'll kind of see how he goes. Carson, for right now, Carson is the guy there. So that is all the news that we have. Minor news: Kendall Wright works out for the Patriots. I don't know how well that's going to work out. They need wide receivers. He's a great slot guy, and those are the kind of guys that they love to have in their offense. But there's no fantasy relevance for that one. So
yeah, the issue there is Edelman's back in 4 weeks, who would take over that spot anyway. So they need a Band-Aid on a bullet wound right now at the wide receiver position. I don't think they're going to get it, but look for Hogan and Gronkowski to have monster first 4 weeks, especially with Brady having a good beginning of the season. But Brady's going to show up here in our bold predictions from me, and not in a good way.
All right, so the next little section we've got going on is we're going to go over our bold predictions. This is basically our biggest part of the show. One of our favorite parts of the season is to take wild guesses at what could be. And let's see, over the last three years, our big wild guesses about specific players. Let's see, we were right about David Johnson in 2015. We were right about Jordan Howard in 2016, and we were right about Alvin Kamara in 2017.
And Kareem Hunt. Don't forget about Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, well, actually, we were right about Kareem Hunt and Alvin Kamara. We were big on him, but just didn't think that he would. We weren't necessarily
that. We thought he could take the starting position, the starting role, but
not do what he did.
Yeah, Rookie of the Year and historic yards per touch numbers.
So this year, honestly, I don't think we have. Do we have? Well, yes, we do have one running back that we're looking at for that. But
yes, I have one.
It's not as
bold.
It's not as bold as we've been in the last few years. It's not as auspicious. So why don't we go ahead and start? Justin, why don't you go ahead and start off with your first bold prediction for the season?
Yeah, I'll go with that running back bold prediction. Last year, I predicted that Kareem Hunt was going to win the Rookie of the Year award above Christian McCaffrey. Got a little bit of flack from it, from Greg, our quarterback writer. But I was right that he did beat McCaffrey in the Rookie of the Year award, but once again, losing to Kamara. And so, to me, this year, it's not as bold as in previous years in predicting a running back, but I really like what I'm seeing out of Royce Freeman so far in the preseason. There was some talk about him not being the starter. Devontae Booker was going to be the starter. It's been released that he is the top of the depth chart. I really like his ability to not only run the ball, but catch the ball. I watched him for 4 years do some serious damage to the Huskies before the last 2 seasons when Peterson in college took over the Huskies and changed the way they played the defense. For those who are doubting his ability to catch the ball, in college he had a season of 16 catches, 26 catches, 23 catches, and 14 catches, but only 4 receiving touchdowns. That was not because of an inability to catch the ball like a Ronald Jones. That is more predicated on Oregon's offense, to where everything is so quick coming out of the quarterback's hands. The play is not allowed to develop enough to get the running back the ball out of the backfield in the passing game. You don't see a whole bunch of pass catching ability from Oregon running backs. But from what I've seen from Royce Freeman, to me, Royce Freeman, offensive rookie of the year, above Saquon Barkley, because he's got a better offensive line, and there's a little bit less weapons, although I do like what Denver can do this year with Case Keenum at quarterback. But to me, bold prediction, Royce Freeman, offensive rookie of the year, put it on the board.
All right. For me, I've got a little running back prediction myself. I'm going with Alex Collins. I have him finishing as a top 12 running back this year. Now, for those of you who are saying, well, he's not much of a pass catcher. He actually had 23 catches last year, which again may not seem like a whole lot. He had 20 of those in the last 7 games. So you extrapolate that out, that's actually finishes out to about 40 catches for the season, 40 plus catches for the season, which I believe. Let me pull the list one more time. For receptions, that actually would put him last year at 43 catches, would put him, right around that Gio Bernard, Shane Vereen area. So still a guy that's going to catch the ball quite a bit. That would be more catches. That would have been more catches than Devontae Freeman, Leonard Fournette, Lamar Miller, and those guys. So I think that they're going to involve him more in the pass game. He finished with 973 rushing yards last year in only 15 games and wasn't even officially announced as starter until week 5. So given that he is the guy now, I think that he can finish with, close to 1,200 yards rushing, because there's not going to be a whole lot going on in the passing game because they still have Joe Flacco. So I think that he can finish with, 1,200 rush yards, 35, 40 catches, and a total, I'd say he can finish with a total of 10 TDs. He does that, that'll put him right about that running back number 12 spot. So even in PPR, I think that he can finish in that top 12.
So out of curiosity, just to kind of put this into context, Fantasy Football Calculator has him drafted average draft position of round 3, pick 7, and 17th. So you have him jumping at least 5 spots. Do you like him more than Donta Freeman, who's kind of right there at that 12 spot in drafts?
I like him. No, not as much as Devontae Freeman, because I actually had Freeman ranked a little bit higher in my running back rankings.
So out of these names, who do you think drops for Alex Collins to bump in? Melvin Gordon, Saquon Barkley, who was number 6.
Saquon Barkley, I think he'll finish more in that running back 13 range.
Yeah, I think Dalvin Cook also drops with Latavius Murray taking goal line work. I think
correct.
Jordan Howard jumps.
I think Jordan Howard can finish in the top 10 easily this year.
Yeah. And so LaShawn McCoy was taken in front of Alex Collins, who I think Alex Collins will beat this year because there's nothing in Buffalo. But I just want to get your thoughts on a couple of players on who you think Alex Collins could beat.
Yep.
Just give context out there. So who you kind of like Alex Collins compared to in guys going around him. My next bold prediction is a bold prediction in a negative way, and my next two are. This next one has to do with Evan Ingram. Now, I've talked about this a little bit already, gearing up to the season, talking about my tight ends and those kinds of things. But Odell Beckham Jr. is healthy and back. Sterling Shepard is now healthy and back. Saquon Barkley has been added in the offseason. In 2016, the last time the OBJ and Sterling Shepard were both healthy for full 16 games. Odell Beckham had 169 targets and 101 catches. Shepard had 105 targets and 65 catches. That's 274 targets and 166 catches of the 377 receptions that Eli threw. Now, some out of the backfield, some of the tight end, but that's spread around a whole bunch of other players. That's a huge share going to 2 players. Now, I look for similar numbers, if not more, this year, because you see last year Sterling Shepard's numbers, he almost beat his rookie season in only playing 11 games before he goes out with injury. Odell Beckham Jr., they just paid him. He's going to have a monster year, probably going to get at least 100 catches, maybe more. So you're looking at 100 catches and maybe 80 catches from Sterling Shepard. There's 180 there. Now you add Saquon Barkley, who a lot of people think could – other people, not me, not you, think that he could lead all backs in catches this year. I've heard that all over the place. So that's looking at around 60 to 80 catches. So what's left over is not a lot. Ingram last year was a borderline low-end tight end 1, I believe. And with all the target share, Odell Beckham Jr. out, Sterling Shepard out, no running game to speak of, and he was the only guy with 2 legs that could run downfield and catch the ball, and he still did not have monster numbers. So to me, take away a lot of that share, and I just don't see enough production when Eli Manning is your quarterback to go around to include Evan Ingram as a top 10 tight end this year.
Ooh, going bold.
Yeah, that's bold. My next one's worse or better.
All right.
Whichever way you look at it.
Since we're running a little long, I'll make this next one quick. I've got Ben Watson as a top 10 tight end, and here's why. You look at he missed the 2016 season with a torn Achilles. Last year, he finishes in Baltimore, where there's not a whole lot of options. He finishes 61 receptions, 522 yards, and 4 TDs. That puts him about, I want to say, put him right around tight end 12 or 13. You look at his last year with the Saints, 74 receptions, 825 yards, and 6 TDs. That was in 2015. This is before the Kobe Fleener project, I guess is the best way to put it. So because of that, I think personally that Benjamin Watson and how he has the rapport already with Drew Brees can put up enough numbers to finish as the tight end number 10. What does that take? Honestly, it doesn't take as much as you would think. Let's go back to last year real quick. Last year's totals for tight ends. If he finishes with, what did I say? I guess right around 60 catches for 550 yards and 5 touchdowns, that practically matches, or 60 catches for 550 yards and 5 touchdowns, that practically matches Jason Witten, who finishes the tight end 9 last year.
Yeah.
So I think that is easily possible. He could get a little bit more in that high-powered offense. So,
yeah, especially with not a lot of production coming from like a Cameron Meredith or Ted Ginn Jr. so far in the preseason.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and get your next one.
My final one to close this out is going to be the Tom Brady. Once again, this is negative. Finishes outside the top 10 a quarterback this year in fantasy football. Now, for those of you who've paid attention to me, this is not quite as bold as a lot of people are going to think. Last year, in weeks, I believe, 5 through 13, he was outside of the top 10. But those first 3 weeks, he had monster numbers. The first week, he didn't get a touchdown, but he threw for 500 yards. And then the next 2 weeks, he had 8 total touchdowns and a bunch of yards. He finished as quarterback 3 last year, but the stretch at the end of the season is what concerns me. That is the trend that I see continuing this year. Now, he may start hot early again, but he's missing a lot. He's not a quarterback that's going to buy yardage or run for touchdowns like a Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, practically any other quarterback in this league. So with all of that, the weapons he's lost last season, once again, Edelman out for the first 4 weeks, without Deion Lewis, without Brandon Cooks. He's got Gronk, Hogan, and Edelman back in week 5. But Father Time will eventually catch up to him. I don't think Brady, it's very bold, but I don't think Brady finishes in the top 10 this year quarterback.
Here's one extra thing to throw in that. In one of my leagues, he finishes the quarterback number 4, and that's with Carson Wentz finishing only 7 points behind him on the season and missing 3 games.
Yep.
And Deshaun Watson only playing in 7 games.
Technically only playing in 5 or 6.
Okay, so because of that, and Watson, even if he came down a little bit from his pace, was still on pace to beat Russell Wilson as the number 1 quarterback of the year. And
yes.
One more, Aaron Rodgers missed almost the entire season. That's 3 quarterbacks that would have finished above Brady and put him in this one league that I play in as quarterback number 7.
Yes.
So
he's only going to fall 3 more spots? I'll take it.
All right. So that's it for our bold predictions. We want to do one last thing. We want to give just a quick overview of the Falcons and Eagles, the first game of the season. Justin, why don't you kind of take some of your thoughts on the Falcons? I'll give my thoughts on the Eagles, and we'll close it up.
My thoughts on the Falcons is that the biggest problem here is Steve Sarkisian still has yet to really utilize Julio Jones in the red zone. Julio Jones only had 3 touchdowns last year, and Julio Jones had single-point games, as in single-digit point games, 4 or 5 times last year. So I'm nervous with Julio Jones' production this year. That's why I had him dropping a little bit more. I think in this first game, first games are always ugly. I'm not going to look to see much from the Eagles' offense, but I think the Falcons are going to win this one just because I don't know what the Eagles can do to put points on the board. I would look for Matt Ryan to be right around at 18 points, maybe 2 touchdowns and yardage. Devontae Freeman getting a score, Julio Jones hopefully getting a score. That's more or less what I see coming from the Falcons. I don't see much from Sanu this game or Calvin Ridley. Austin Hooper might get 40 yards, a couple catches, but I don't see him to be utilized this early in the season.
All right, for me, kind of looking at the Eagles, it actually looks like there's supposed to be like a thunderstorm and stuff going on for the game. It's outside in Philadelphia. I don't see Foles. Foles is really struggling in this offseason, or in this preseason. So I'm somewhat hesitant on what he's going to be able to do in this game. So for me, I think that he could finish with a couple touchdowns. The defense, I think, is going to be pretty stout and play pretty well. But again, with all the weapons that the Falcons have, this very well could be a shootout at the same time. So their passing, again, I think is not going to be all that great. Really, it's Aguilar and Ertz are their 2 main receivers. The running backs, I'm not big on Ajayi, but you have pass catchers out of the back in Sproles, Smallwood, Clement. Those guys will be able to get enough done that I think that Ajayi may be a running back 2. Deeper leagues, Clement may be a flex play in like a 14 to 16 team league. I mean, they ran the ball well last year, but overall they had multiple runners running the ball, and no one guy. They're big on the committee thing, so I'm hesitant on their running backs simply because of how they play committee, and I'm not all that sure on Foles this year. So for me, I'm kind of avoiding most of the Eagles for this game. Julio is an automatic start. Devonta Freeman's an automatic start. That's for the most part. That's about it. Oh, and Zach Ertz is an automatic start. Those are the only 3 guys from this game. So, yeah,
those would be the only 3 guys I would feel comfortable in playing. I have Nelson Aguilar in a 12-team league, and it's a 2-flex league, and I'm looking to play like Breida or Morris potentially because of the PPR possibility, and Nick Foles has looked atrocious, or play Lamar Miller against New England as the other flex instead of Aguilar, because I think Miller's going to have a great year because they can't stack the box against him, and he doesn't have to do as much in previous years like he does, or he has not had to do as much in this year with Watson at quarterback because they now have some actual offense.
Alrighty, well that's it. That's all we've got for this episode. We want to thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to us. It's here, guys. The NFL season is here. Hope you guys all have great seasons. We look forward to being with you the rest of this year, giving you as much fantasy advice as we can. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. This has been the SkullKing Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Ryan Skullrood.
And I'm Justin Skullrood.
And we'll talk to you guys later. Hey, SkullKing Nation. Thank you for listening to the SkullKing Football Podcast. Did you like this episode? If so, be sure to go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube to subscribe. Also, please leave us a rating and reviews to let us know how we can better help you rule your leagues.